Have you ever had government cheese? Craig, government cheese, you had some?
No.
Thick, stinking government cheese. Couldn't take a dump for 2 weeks. If you eat it on the 4th of July, by the 18th, everybody in the whole neighborhood trying to get to the bathrooms. I want to eat some of them chitlin. I love pig feet. The barbecue pig feet were gone. You got grease all over your damn mouth.
Welcome to the Perfect Movie Podcast, the podcast where we answer the question, is this a perfect movie? I'm Michael.
I'm Kalen.
And today, we are doing the movie Friday, starring Ice Cube and Chris Tucker, and many more. Kalen, how do you feel about Friday?
So I think of Friday as the godfather of the blaxploitation genre. I think it's definitely earns a spot in the history of black-centric film as far as being an influence to many films that come later. It's hilarious, at least I think it is. I think it's funny every single time I watch it, and I've watched this many times. I remember this is one of those movies growing up where it's like you knew you were watching something bad, but it's like I had to watch it. And
bad, like naughty,
but like also like your parents have watched this movie. Like everybody's watched this. As a black man, I can say you're not really black if you haven't watched Friday. And that's how we always saw it. And so like my parents, obviously they watched it. And so they're like, you know, this is something you definitely can't watch. And so whenever I'm at my friend's house or at my cousin's, we'd put this on and it'd be the funniest shit ever. And it's funny because it still kind of holds up even as an adult where I'm like, this is kind of hilarious, or there's many aspects of this that are very funny. It's a very simple film, but also has some commentary, some social stuff, especially between young black men and their fathers. Very interesting stuff. And just their place in the world and finding purpose and meaning and being a man is another big theme of this. Yeah, I love Friday. This is I love Friday in real life too. Fridays are great.
Friday is a good day. As far as days, before we even talk about the movie, as far as days, Friday's like top 2?
Yeah. No, top number 1.
Number
Friday
1
is the best day.
But you still have to work on Friday usually.
You still have to work, but you're looking forward to getting off work because damn, I got 2 days to chill.
Yeah, Friday's got the hope at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah.
You don't know what's actually going to happen, but it's all about the promise.
And I think this movie conveys Friday very well, where it's like, this feels like a Friday. So hence the name.
Well, Kalen, according to your standards, I wasn't a real black man until this morning when I watched Friday.
Well, now you can come to every cookout you want, buddy. You watched the movie. You did it. Come on in and get these ribs.
Okay. I've actually seen the beginning of this movie a lot. Maybe I even watched it one time as a teenager and I forgot it, but I didn't remember most of everything past like the first 30 minutes of this movie. Ice Cube's dad is so funny.
John Witherspoon.
Yes.
R.I.P.
Oh my God. Better put some water on that shit.
He's like, every time I'm in the kitchen, you in the kitchen, eating up all the food, all the cornbread, all the pig feet, all the hog maw. I like pig feet.
Or when he invites him in to talk to him while he's taking a shit. Gross.
Nobody go in there for about 45 minutes.
So this is great comedy, a lot of fun. I think there's some moments, since I don't have the nostalgia for it necessarily, that I'm like, oh, this didn't age well.
Yeah.
especially at like the very end. But I think that's like a thing with a lot of comedies like this where they don't really know where to end it. Like this never really had that much plot to begin with, so fuck it, we're gonna finish it up somehow.
Right.
And it ends with Ice Cube punching up Debo in the streets.
Yeah. And then getting the girl.
As like a victorious note. As like a... I don't know. When I watched it, I was a little like, oh, this is how this ends? This is kind of grimy.
But the point is he used his fists and not his guns.
I mean, that's true.
You know?
It kind of feels like...
Put the guns down. Handle your business.
I mean, that's how we taught him. There's numerous times where the dad's like, don't help him. Don't let him be a man.
Yeah. Come on, Craig.
Okay, so question. Craig Jones, CJ from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
Some similarities.
Is that on purpose, or do you think that just is a coincidence?
It's probably a coincidence, but I could see the. I mean, it's West Coast. I mean, this is California, Inglewood. It's the same type of deal. Inspires those types of characters, I think. So
here's a quick summary of Friday. It's Friday. Craig Jones, played by Ice Cube, is unemployed, having been fired yesterday on his day off. This has led to trouble with Smokey's supplier. That's Chris Tucker. Big Worm, played by Faison Love, wants his money back, or his product back, or Smokey's dead. And all this is over about $200 worth of weed. Then there's Debo, played by Tommy Lister, also known as the guy that throws the keys out of the window in The Dark Knight on the boat.
He's also just known as Debo.
Yeah.
That's what everybody... And RIP to him as well.
It's just very funny to me watching this now that Chris Nolan was like, let's bring Debo on board for the Dark Knight morality play.
He was always that guy that was like, if you need a scary-looking dude, let's cast this guy because he's a freaking beast.
Craig also has a jealous, psychotic girlfriend played by Paula J. Parker. Her name is Joy, and he has a crush on the girl next door, Debbie. And then a lot can happen on Friday when you're lounging around the house.
Yeah. Would you say this is like an original stoner comedy as well?
I was going to say, my first note says, it's about weed. So it's definitely up there. I mean, it's 95, so certainly there are some that predate it. Like, when does Clerks come out? I think Clerks is after this. That's like the white version of stoner comedy sitting around.
Yeah.
But it is an early days stoner comedy.
I'm thinking of like movies that were directly inspired by this, like Mac and Dev Go to High School with Wiz Khalifa and Snoop Dogg, or like, you know, it's got that same type of feel. Yeah, How High? Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those movies where smoking weed makes you see visions and act very, 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 very strange.
What's another famous one? The White Castle one.
Oh, Harold and Kumar?
Harold and Kumar, yeah. Also the same type of feel. It's always a duo thing. Every weed movie is like two guys, you know.
Yeah. But really, Chris Tucker's been smoking all the weed, and it doesn't even really hit him. He's chilling.
Because he's got that tolerance, man.
I like that Smokey's vanity plates say, fuck it. That's kind of his whole opinion on life entirely.
The funny scene the scene that was hilarious was when they're sitting on the porch and then those Hispanic dudes drive up and they're like, yo, Smokey!
And it's playing Lowrider.
Oh, yeah. And they gave him like, what, K2 or like Spice or something
Angel
the night
Dust.
before? Yeah, it's Angel Dust, Holmes. He's like tweaking in the back of the seat.
I'm never smoking them again. Man, fuck them. That was our summary. I've lost track. Shall we get into the performance test?
Yes.
It was the performance of a lifetime.
Do you have anyone you want to lead off with?
John Withers as Craig's dad. He's hilarious in everything he's in. He was also the grandfather in the Boondocks series. I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Same type of character, but he's just his line delivery is just hilarious. He doesn't even really have to be saying anything.
It's the way he's chewing grapes when he's talking to him.
Go take out the trash, boy.
I love that. So he gets bit by a dog and he comes home from work early, and then later Ice Cube gets called in to bring him a glass of water, and he's watching a show that's a mailman getting eaten by a dog.
Like a commercial. So he's like, run, Mr. Mailman. Get away from him.
He's so into it because he's like, this is my life. I know all about this.
He's got like a bandage on his ass or whatever.
I didn't realize this was the movie that Bye Felicia comes from.
Yeah.
My
This is a
white
very
ass.
memeable movie. The scene where they're like, damn, that's a big meme. Yeah, bunch of shit.
When Debo punches a man like 8 feet into the air, like a fucking, like it turned into anime for 20 seconds.
You got knocked the fuck out.
Older the berry, the sweeter the juice. Man, it's blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. Yeah, well, she's blacker than a motherfucker. That is a funny line.
So yeah, another notable performance, Chris Tucker, is pretty hilarious in this.
I think Ice Cube is actually another good example of what I was talking about with Spike Lee in our previous episode. He's not a great actor, but he's the great actor to put in the middle of all these strange characters to just kind of hang around and be like, what the fuck is happening? Because picture Ice Cube's face in a movie where he's like kind of like got his eyebrows raised and he's like turned his head
like,
a little.
The fuck?
That's him this entire movie.
Yeah. And then you just got this over the top low life dude, which is Smokey.
Yes. He's the counterpoint to Chris Tucker being all over the damn place. Energy on 11, just spazzing out in every scene. Like the scene where he's taking a shit on the side of the house.
Oh, and what's the crackhead's name or the
Ezal?
Yeah, Ezel. He comes up, he's like, Smokey, what you doing?
Smokey, you know that I ain't the smartest man in the world, but for back here, look like you're taking a shit.
Hey, Smokey taking a shit. Or he was in the store, he was like, my neck, my back, my neck and my back.
Or when Ezal comes by after the little person kicked his wife out and he was throwing all his clothes on the
He's
line.
just taking all the clothes, yeah.
Ezal might be a little light in the loafers, as they say.
Another notable Debo, or Tiny, who plays Debo, is got some funny lines in this too, where he's just like, it's just his presence that's hilarious. Like he's just this giant dude, but he's rolling down the street in his bike.
It's the fact that they play like Jaws music every time he shows up on his little bicycle,
and you just hear the from the bike or whatever. Like, and then everybody's putting away their jewelry and shit because Debo just always snatching something.
That's why I was so surprised when it turned him into like the real villain and, and he slaps the neighbor chick.
Yeah, that was like, damn.
I was like, oh, this got intense. Like weirdly, like this got gross. This got kind of Maury Povich.
He gave Felicia a black eye and everything. Yeah, it got kind of real for a minute in this like, stoner comedy.
But then it turns into Ice Cube just boxing him mano a mano. He was gonna shoot him.
He threw a brick at him and shit. My favorite scene is when Debo comes up to Craig and Smokey, and then the dude, is it the UPS driver or the FedEx driver, their friend, and they're all hanging out, and then they just start putting in their chains, putting away their chains, and the one guy's like, I'm just gonna tuck my shit in.
You knew that was a mistake.
He's like, what you got? What y'all got? And then they decide to go break into the neighbor's house. And Debo's like trying to get Smokey to come along with him and stuff. Just hilarious shit. And Debo's like, shut the fuck up before I knock your ass out. He's got a lot of great lines. Just a very star-studded cast to begin with. A lot of very notable black actors. I think for a lot of these people, this was their first like big debut. And then after that, they're just in everything. Thinking notably... Regina King, she's in a lot of stuff. She's also in the Boondocks. She voices Riley and Huey from the Boondocks. Faison Love is in a few things. He was in Elf. I don't know if you've seen Elf.
Oh, of course I've seen Elf.
Yeah, he was in Elf. Let's see, Megan Good.
Hey, I just gotta say, Kathleen Bradley is Miss Parker across the street. Mommy.
All right.
That's enough of that.
Yeah.
Bonk.
Did you say mommy because she's...
What do you mean?
Are you racist right now?
Mommy?
Because she's Hispanic?
No, she's not. I'm pretty sure she's not. Her name is Kathleen Bradley. Does that sound
She looked Hispanic in the movie, so I'm just trying to call you out, you
well, that
white devil.
Uno reverse card on that shit. Who's telling on who now?
Yeah, also Bernie Mac makes an appearance in this as well. R.I.P. Bernie Mac.
R.I.P. Bernie Mac. He's a firmly religious man who might fuck your wife.
Yeah. He's also just, he was an incredible talent that was lost too soon. So R.I.P. Bernie Mac.
Bernie Mac show, very funny.
Yeah.
Maybe the constant jokes about beating your children didn't age super well.
No, but I mean,
but also, it's so funny.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen any of his stand-up, but his most notable one was like, I don't think you understand. I ain't scared of you motherfuckers. Yeah. Because the Def Jam comedy audience was like very notoriously known to just like boo the shit out of anybody.
Oh.
And so Bernie Mac went on stage and just killed the whole set.
No, Bernie Mac is definitely one of those comedians that anybody that you talk to about him, or it's just like he just slayed the room. He's one of the, speaking of character actors that showed up in Transformers, Bernie Mac is in Transformers 1, and he sells Sam Witwicky the car, and he's also like the second best part of that movie.
I did not.
Do you remember
I do not
this?
remember that.
He's the used car salesman that
He
they
sells
buy.
some Bumblebee.
Yeah, that they buy Bumblebee from. That's Bernie Mac.
Oh, I haven't seen those movies in years, man.
I'm just making references. I understand.
Yeah. You know what? I think they put all the Transformers movies on Netflix recently. I was like, I almost wanted to watch them because I like Shia LaBeouf. But then I was like, nah, these movies suck.
I mean, I haven't seen them in a while. I remember the first one being pretty good. Then they got
loud.
Yeah, they got obnoxious. I just want to say maybe my favorite Chris Tucker line, which is, I got mind control over Debo. What do you say? Shut up.
Sit your ass down.
Man, I got mind control over Debo. He be like, shut the fuck up. I be quiet. But when he leave, I be talking again.
No, Michael, that's a really good point about Ice Cube. Wait. What is that?
Is that what I think it is?
It looks like a hole in the quantum realm. But there's someone in there.
Oh no. It's the Binge Watch Boys! What's up, bingers? This is the Binge Watch Boys podcast, where we binge all your favorite TV shows.
Forget Stranger Things. There's a new hot show on the block. The Last of Us.
Yeah! Rip-offs of 80 movies are so last year. Video game adaptations are the new hotness.
It's The Last of Us. It was on PlayStation 3.
See, this is a cool new video game adaptation and not one of those pieces of crap we had before, like
Monster Hunter, starring Mila Jovovich.
Resident Evil, starring Mila Jovovich.
Resident Evil, Apocalypse, starring Mila Jovovich.
Resident Evil, Retribution, starring Mila Jovovich.
And like 9 more Resident Evils, starring Mila Jovovich.
And even more video game movies like Tomb Raider,
Prince of Persia,
Max Payne,
Doom, starring The Rock.
Need for Speed with Jesse from Breaking Bad,
The Uncharted movies, starring Marky Mark and Spider-Man.
Rampage, starring The Rock.
And the Mario Brothers movie.
You mean the one coming soon, starring Pissed Rat? Slick Tat? Chris Pratt.
No, the other one with Bob Hoskins from 1993.
Oh! With such a great track record, it's a wonder more video games haven't been updated to TV and film.
But let's not forget, The Last of Us isn't just a video game adaptation, it's also a zombie TV show.
Oh, but this time they're mushrooms. Okay!
That way it's different from all the other zombie movies and TV shows we've had in the past 20 years, like World War Z, starring Brad Pitt.
Or Dawn of the Dead remake, directed by Zack Snyder.
Army of the Dead, directed by Zack Snyder.
Shaun of the Dead, it's zombies, but this time it's a funny movie. Okay!
28 days later.
It's not doing 28 days.
28 days later.
28 weeks later.
Zombieland. It's a funny zombie movie, too.
Okay! Well, let's not forget the zombie TV shows like
The Walking Dead.
Fear the Walking Dead,
The Walking Dead, The World Beyond.
The Tales of the Walking Dead.
The Walking Dead, Dead City.
Oh wait, The Walking Dead is a video game too. I got my wires all crossed up. It's a video game, and it's a comic book, and it's a TV series.
Relax, man, it's just content.
It's a multimedia enterprise, and it's making AMC money.
Endless trash. So you know this Last of Us show will feel new and fresh, right?
Oh, it'll be so new and fresh. You know what they'll say about this podcast?
What?
It broke new ground! I don't even know how to intro this.
Boy, those binge watch guys. They're something else.
You know, good thing they just came by and left. You know, I think they got so excited they ripped a hole back in the quantum realm. But you know, sometimes they have some good TV show recommendations.
They do. And you know what? One of those recommendations we actually watched.
What? We watched The Last of Us starring Pedro Pascal.
Let's be clear that the season isn't entirely over yet, but we have watched the first 5 episodes, and we are going to do a mid-season review because I believe there's going to be 10 episodes this season. So, Michael, what did you think of The Last of Us so far?
So, Kaylin, this season, here's the thing, and here's one of the things that I just want this podcast to show, and that I believe, and that I think most people don't do, but I think the world would be in a better place if we did it. And that's differentiating. Woohoo, let me say that word again. And that's differentiating between things that I like and things that are bad. Okay. So I'm going to say I don't particularly like this show, but it is not a bad show.
Sure.
It is a good show, but it is not necessarily of a genre that I'm interested in at the moment, or a show that I'm like revving to watch every week. I'm not awaiting the next episode.
I think the bigger overall question is, was this necessary? Was this adaptation necessary?
I agree.
Because it just feels like the television and movie, the whole environment is just so saturated with zombie stuff. And I feel like it was a fad that has now died off. Do you agree?
Like when The Last of Us, the video game, originally released, which I think was around like 2012, 2013.
It was the height of like The Walking Dead or...
Yes, it was like the height of our most recent infatuation with zombies, where we had The Walking Dead TV show be the biggest thing ever. We had lots of zombie movies. It was like there was a big moment around like late 2000s, early 2010s where we were really heavy, knee-deep in zombie content. And this adaptation, to me, feels like a little too soon. We're just close enough where I feel like, is this necessary? Do we need this? And not far away enough where it's like, oh, we're bringing it back. Like,
right. And we also are just fresh off the heels of a pandemic.
Yeah, that too. So it is the especially the beginning part where we're exploring like how the zombie outbreak started. Hits really close to home, and it's just like I don't necessarily need to watch a pandemic spread worldwide in a fictional setting
when you already lived through
Yeah.
it.
I just lived it, and it was like last year.
They took all the toilet paper. My God. How am I going to wipe my ass? I guess my question for you is, have you played the game?
No, have you?
Yes.
I know I've recently acquired a PlayStation. I've never been...
You had a PlayStation before, so that's why I asked this question.
Never a PlayStation 3 or a PlayStation 4. I had a PlayStation 2 and a PlayStation 1.
You had a PlayStation 4, dude.
Oh, yeah, for like a short period of time.
How do I know this and you don't?
That's true. I forgot. I had it for like a month, but I wasn't Also, The Last of Us, even the video game, I've always kind of been like, I don't know if that's a thing I'm going to play just because I know enough about it. Like, frankly, I know how The Last of Us 1, the story ends.
Right.
I generally know the story arc, which also...
You found all this shit out on YouTube.
Yeah, just like watching YouTube, I follow a couple like video game podcasts. They will do like spoiler reviews, and like at the end of the year, they'll have discussions that involve spoilers. Okay. So I learned these things without actually playing the game. So I'm like familiar in general with the story as written in the game, but I've never played them. But you've played them?
I've played both The Last of Us games, part 1 and part 2. These games are regarded, or at least the first one, I know the second one is pretty controversial. It kind of split the fan base, I believe. The first one is regarded as one of the best video games ever made. I don't necessarily agree with that, but it didn't... I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed both of these. Not as avid of a fan as people who, you know, would be super attached to this property. But I did enjoy it. I think the narrative is really good, especially for a video game. I'm personally into the narrative-driven games. I know you're not as big into those as me, but I enjoyed it. And from that narrative perspective and the gameplay perspective, I thought it was pretty good.
The Last of Us is a very, and this also goes into the discussion of was this necessary? The Last of Us, the story, you could probably watch all the cutscenes and get 90% of the story. Lots of video games do more what they would call like emergent storytelling or like gameplay storytelling where the story is told while you're doing the actions. But
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but The Last of Us is a lot of like, it's the action sequences that are the part that you play or maybe some exploration. But the story is largely contained in maybe when you're walking around.
It's very linear. Yeah.
But the story is largely contained into the cutscenes.
Yes.
And so it's like very separated in that part where it feels like it doesn't necessarily need to be adapted. Like there's kind of a Last of Us movie already made just
Right.
from the cutscenes and in the games.
Right. And there's little moments in gameplay where Ellie and Joel will kind of bond or, you know, have some conversation back and forth. That's a good point. Also, I think that's what kind of ruined this watch through for me, where it's like I already know what's going to happen. And obviously they made this for people, not only the fans, because there's fan service, but it's not like over the top fan service. I think they do it well enough, but also they make it fresh and interesting for people who have no idea what The Last of Us is. And I think for me personally, I just I couldn't enjoy this as much as somebody who's an avid fan or somebody who's going to completely blind. That doesn't mean it wasn't good, but
So I'm going to draw a line. This is a new show. There are going to be spoilers for future episodes and also for The Last of Us game going forward, which may or may not inform some of the show. We don't know, episode 5, how much they're going to carry with them and how much
Right.
they're going to change. But yes, because I know the story, I'm like, our two core characters, Ellie and Joel, maybe we should set up... I'm going to rewind a little bit just to give you guys a little setup. So it's a sort of a zombie apocalypse. There's like a mushroom contagion that takes over people and they essentially act like zombies.
the cordyceps virus which is actually a real virus. It's present in insects.
Yeah, it's a real fungi.
Yeah, a real fungi. Yeah.
Yeah, that exists but can't live within human because of our current body temperature.
Yep.
And I forget what they say is the reason that it can, but eventually it gets inside humans, it lives, and it's not like classic zombies where they die and they come back to life, but if you're infected with the cordyceps virus, you start mutating, you become bloodthirsty, and you essentially...
A shell of your former self.
Yeah, you essentially act like a zombie, as any other zombie fiction.
Right.
And then we have our two main characters. We have Joel, who we get a prologue about. Joel lost his daughter during the sort of fall of civilization, and then we cut to 20 years later, where we pick up the story again. And then Joel gets sent on a mission to carry this girl, Ellie, who is somehow immune to the virus, and this faction called the Fireflies want to somehow they want to study her and maybe get a cure from her because she seems to be immune from infected bites.
Right. And so there's the thing I love the most about the Last of Us world is like everything is split up into different factions. And so Fedra is like the split off from the government. And basically they have these quarantine zones where all these people live. And the Fireflies are like the rebels, basically. So it makes for interesting world building. I like how everything's already pre-established. We don't have to go in too much through the backgrounds of everybody and everything. If the world feels lived in.
Sorry, and Joel and Ellie are sent on a mission. He's on a delivery mission, basically, to get Ellie to a specific base.
Right.
I think he starts in Boston, and he needs to get somewhere in Middle America. As of the last episode, they are in Kansas City, headed to Wyoming. But I forget where they say the actual Firefly base is.
It's in Seattle.
It's in Seattle. So it's a cross-country road trip type of deal through basically zombie-infested, or as they call them, infected.
And not only do they have to worry about infected, but they also have to worry about humans.
The real monsters are the people.
Which The Walking Dead has taught us countless times.
Or like literally any zombie fiction ever.
Yeah.
Like Dawn of the Dead, all that. Like it is the most well-worn territory of like apocalypse fiction.
Right.
The real baddies are not whatever that caused the apocalypse. It's the people surviving it and what it does to the people.
And you know what's funny? Because when I was watching this, I was comparing this to the first couple seasons of The Walking Dead a lot. And I don't want to do that because this is its own thing. And obviously it's quality. It's made with care and love or whatever. But I couldn't help but think of like the first couple seasons of The Walking Dead. I think of the first season. I mean, I would say that's masterclass in television.
Those first 2 episodes really slap you across the face.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of that here in the prologue I thought was really interesting. But then when we jumped ahead, I was like, oh, we got to start again now?
Yeah.
Like we had some momentum and then it was like, skirt, now we get to the real story.
Like The Walking Dead like introduces all these characters and it goes into a like continuous narrative where it's like they're all together and you see this journey that they take together. It doesn't stop and then jump 20 years ahead.
Well, we get, I think, a little prologue, but it's not spending like, so the first episode's a double episode, so they're usually about 45 minutes to an hour. The first episode's an hour and a half. And it doesn't spend 45 minutes setting up the prologue. We get a little bit of Rick in The Walking Dead, his like pre-zombie life. Then he goes to sleep because he has some sort of medical accident, and he wakes up and it's the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, we get to learn about the world along with Rick.
Right.
We don't really get that opportunity. It's a different setup, but like in The Last of Us, then it's Joel is with his daughter. The things start falling apart. His daughter ends up dying. Joel is captured?
No, I guess, so alluding to that, he basically runs off with Tommy, and Tommy joins the Fireflies. I don't know if they both join the Fireflies, but
he
so
survives.
That's how they ended up in that QZ.
Yeah, he survives this encounter, and then we just jump ahead 20 years, and then we're starting afresh in episode 1. And that part really kind of like, the most impressive thing to me is there's this scene in episode 1 where everything's going to shit. Joel, his brother, and his daughter are leaving in the truck, and there's this great scene where they're trying to drive away. They get out of traffic. They're driving down this road. Infected starts or not even infected.
People just start spilling on the streets.
Yeah, start spilling on the street. There's mass panic.
Ripped straight out of the video game, though, too.
Yes, and it's also ripped straight out of Children of Men, the movie, where the camera is like posed in the middle of the truck, and it keeps spinning on its axis, like there's no cuts, and we're just kind of seeing the environment, like the walls close in around them, like a jetliner explodes in the background, and you're like,
it's really effective.
It's really effective. It's really cool. Joel spills out into a back alley, into like behind a house, into like sort of a wooded area. A soldier chases him. The soldier's under orders to put them down, basically.
Yeah.
Shoots the daughter. Joel survives. Cut to the fresh start. And then once we get to the fresh start, that's when I was like, kind of like,
I didn't mind it, and I think maybe it's because I already know the story. I know where it's going to go. But I didn't mind that aspect where it's like I love world building, and this is what I love. Things like The Lord of the Rings, like those types of stories where it's like they don't have to show you everything. They just have to show you that the world is lived in and that there's things going on in other places, even if you're in one spot. You know what I mean? So I enjoy that type of narrative, that type of storytelling. But I could see how you found that a little irritating.
Like, I understand. It's like I knew this was not. Like, I knew this was the prologue. We weren't sticking with Joel and his daughter this whole time. It was going to be about Joel and Ellie, so, like, I knew this is where it was going. It just felt like it had me, and then it just, like, loosened the grip on the thing that had me and made me have to, like, re-engage my interest. And it took me a while. Some of these more recent episodes I like more than, like, episode 2. Like, honestly, episode 2 I found kind of felt like a chore to me.
Episode 2 with the clickers?
1 and 2 kind of blend together, but yeah, that's the one where so Joel has a new girlfriend or wife named Tess, right?
It's like they're partners. I don't know if it's ever like shown that they're lovers.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's alluded to. They're close, at least, whatever it is. Joel and Tess agree to take Ellie cross country, and then
because Joel is trying to find Tommy, his brother,
and he needs a truck, and this is a way for them to get a hold of a truck. And that episode, yeah, to me was kind of tiresome. I guess maybe it was just my mood, but like the only moment that stood out to me was mostly because I thought it was funny. Is every once in a while it seems like they'll allude to the video game, where there's a scene where Joel and Ellie sit and talk for a little bit while Tess leaves to go open the door,
yeah,
which is like classic video game. Where what is actually happening when you're watching the video game is they're loading the next area, but a character will be like, hey, I'll be right back. I'm the only one that can squeeze through.
I gotta go open this door.
So I'll duck around and then I'll let you guys in. And then while it's loading in the background, we get to sit and have a scene of Joel and Ellie talking.
Right.
Like that's what would be happening in the video game. But they're just alluding to that. Yeah. And that was the episode.
I thought that was pretty cool how they handled that, though.
Yes, and that was the episode directed by, I'm blanking on his name, but like the director.
The actual director.
Of the video game. So I like that he added that little sort of like, hey, if you know video games, this is kind of an Easter egg.
Well, it's kind of crazy because, I mean, the clicker scene in that episode, I mean, that was straight out of the game. Like, it felt like you were actually playing the game. Because, I mean, those parts in the game, I know you haven't played it, but those parts in the game when there are clickers, it's complete darkness. You have a flashlight. You can't make any noise or these things will rush at you. I mean, I felt that same type of tension in this scene, and I thought that was very effective. And practical effects, too, which was pretty cool. And I was like, you guys actually put some work and some effort into this.
That's the one thing I will give the show big props on. They do love their practical effects. It's all people and creature makeup. It's minimal CG with the monsters. They do have in that clicker scene, it's like the press A to stick to cover. Like Joel and Ellie are both like back to the wall, like classic video game fashion. I don't know. I don't have a lot to say about the first 2 episodes. Those ones are kind of like the kickoff. Like, it's really the second episode kind of feels like the end of the intro. That's like when we're really like, now we're on the road.
Yeah. And then it completely subverts that with episode 3.
Oh, this one's about a couple of gays.
It was a very controversial episode. Like, fuck off, man. It's fine. So episode 3 follows the story of Bill and Frank. So Bill is the guy in the game that gets them the car. And that was his only purpose in the game.
Is he alive in the game?
He was alive, and he has banter with Ellie, and they're all traveling together for a little bit to find a battery for this car.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that changed. I kind of assumed it was the same.
But I don't understand why people are surprised by, especially fans, with Bill being gay, because he was gay in the game too. It was very subtle, because the way we find out Bill was gay, it was like his reaction to seeing Frank, which Frank killed himself in the game.
Okay.
And his reaction to Frank, and then also Ellie finds a magazine, which they cover that scene later on. But yeah, so people saying this is controversial, all that kind of shit, or are they just being mad about it just for the sake of being mad? Shut the fuck up.
That gives me some hope, because I didn't know that was different from the game. I assumed it was the same. Because, like, The Walking Dead, I didn't know as much about its source material as I do about The Last of Us, but, like, The Walking Dead was not afraid to start pretty early on start like changing the format.
Yeah.
Like doesn't Shane die in The Walking Dead like way earlier?
Shane dies at the camp outside of Atlanta, even before they get to the farm.
Okay, so Shane dies way later.
Yeah. In the show, Shane dies at the farm.
So I was
Season
concerned
2.
that The Last of Us would feel so beholden to like the source material and not change it up and be willing to surprise people.
Right.
I'm still assuming like the main strokes of the ending will be the same. The dynamic between Joel and Ellie, we can get in that later, but that gives me some hope. And this episode, Bill is played by Nick Offerman, who you might know from Parks and Rec as Ron Swanson. He is constantly typecast as a libertarian now. He's a libertarian in Parks and Rec as well, but this time he's gay, so I guess we like him. I don't know. That felt like a weird, like, I guess he's gay in the video game, but
He didn't want people to get it twisted.
we didn't want him to be too hateable for the liberals.
Yeah, I mean, that episode, it was very long. That's what I'll say. But also, it was very well done, and it was tasteful, and I kind of shed a tear a little bit towards the end.
So short summary is it's mostly about Bill and Frank. And he's like a doomsday prepper, he's a libertarian, he's got a whole wall of guns, and as soon as the apocalypse happened, he's like, fuck off police. He hides and he makes it out of the sweep, so he just hunkers down in his house and builds traps.
And then he like took over the entire town, basically, or whatever that little town is.
Because everybody else got herded up by Fedra, and it didn't end well for them. So Bill is probably the smart person in this situation.
Doomsday preppers, man, they know what they're doing.
When the doomsday comes, they feel hella fucking smart, don't they?
Right. Nobody's laughing now.
Eventually, a guy named Frank shows up. First, Bill like holds him at arm's length, but then he decides to help him, and then very quickly they fall in love, become lovers, live the next 15 years. We sort of advance a few years every couple scenes,
Yep.
and we kind of slowly get to see their romance blossom in the relationship. Eventually there is an attack, and we see Bill fighting off the attack. Joel visits at some point and warns there'll be raiders coming, and the raiders do come. And my question is, why the hell is Bill with a sniper rifle standing in the middle of the road out in the open?
Yeah, it was kind of ridiculous. I mean, it was like, obviously you're going to get fucking hit, bro. Get behind something.
Did that happen in the games? Do we see any of that?
No, I mean, there were no raiders in that section of the game. It was all infected. So in the game, they're trying to get to a school, and for whatever reason they have to get there, and because there was a military convoy that crashed there, and they had to get a car battery, and there was a fresh one in the Humvee or whatever. So they basically just travel through this town that's filled with infected to get this battery. And so that was one of the big changes in the show, was like, well, we're not going to do the whole infected thing because that'll be tedious. And we don't want to tire out the infected. We want to keep them fresh. We want to keep them scary. And that's what happened with The Walking Dead, or it didn't happen with The Walking Dead, where they kept showing the fucking walkers and then they don't get scary anymore. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. So
I want to say that it was interesting because so in that sniper scene where I'm talking about Bill standing out in the middle of the road for no reason, he gets hit. So you assume there's a whole scene. You assume Bill's going to die. And then we see a far shot and somebody's wheeling somebody else in a wheelchair. So you assume it's Bill, but turns out it's Frank. Frank is sick.
Suppose it maybe cancer or something like that. They mentioned something.
They don't really get into it, but it's clearly like cancer or something else. He's in a wheelchair. He's very sickly. He's very ill. And it quickly turns into, this is Frank's last day. He's going to commit suicide. And he wants to, plan out his last day with Bill, have one last meal, and kill himself.
Before we get too far, the part that got me was the part they ate strawberries together.
Really?
Yeah.
That was very cute.
Because his reaction when he bit into the strawberry, I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I did skip ahead a bit. There is lots of fun's maybe not the word. It's well done.
Very cute moments, I would say.
Yeah. It's a well done romance, and it's dignified, and it makes sense. And you do kind of like their dynamic. Bill's the like, we gotta stand our ground and hold up. And Frank's like the more
I
welcoming.
gave one of your guns away, kind
Yeah.
of thing. And he's like, you did what?
He said a little one. It's Frank's last day. And he's like, I'm going to drink the last of these pills and it's going to kill me. And that's going to be the end. And when I saw that, this reminded me a lot of the movie Paddleton. Have you ever seen Paddleton?
I was thinking Paddington.
No.
Paddington Bear.
Paddleton with Ray Romano and Mark Duplass.
I have not seen that.
It's a lot like this episode, but less gay. Frankly. It's about two best friends. Paddleton is a movie about two best friends, one played by Ray Romano, one played by Mark Duplass.
Okay.
They are like neighbors to each other, and Mark Duplass has cancer, and he can't get the assisted suicide drugs in state, so he asks Ray Romano to come with him on the road trip to go buy his assisted suicide drugs.
It's very fucking depressing.
It's depressing, but it's actually like a pretty funny movie. It turns into a road trip movie. There's like this whole scene where like Ray Romano's insisting on paying for Mark Duplass's suicide drugs, but then his card bounces and it turns into a whole thing. But it's like, why are you buying his suicide drugs? He's going to be dead in like 48 hours.
Does he end up not doing it?
No, so spoilers for Paddleton, I guess. The end scene is so touching and so like real, and it just feels it's real fucking gut punch. But no, he does take his assisted suicide pills. Ray Romano's with them, and we just kind of watch them like talk him through it. This episode is different. I was like, oh, it's not Paddleton, it's a double suicide, because what turns out is Nick Offerman says, how many there was pills left in the bottles, Frank says, and he was like, yeah, and I put them all in mine, and he drinks all his wine, and Frank had already drank all his wine, so they are both poisoned themselves.
And Bill says he found his purpose and he did what he came to do. And
right. He doesn't have a purpose without Frank, so he just decided that they're going to both commit suicide. And we don't get the, like, they just walk away and close the door.
yeah, we don't get them.
We don't get, like, a
laying down
long,
and-
dramatic scene of them saying goodbye to each other, which I liked. I thought that was a tasteful way to handle that.
And so this kind of, so people who are saying that this episode is unnecessary, they're missing the entire point of the show, which this episode explains the entire theme of the show, which is finding purpose, finding love, and finding somebody to protect in a world that's too far gone, basically. So in that aspect, I think this episode was warranted. There's a couple technical things that I had issues with. Number one, the runtime, way too long. But also, I will say, so we'll lead into after they committed suicide. Joel and Ellie come to this town where Bill is staying. They finally make it to his place. A couple days later, probably. It's never explained. But they come.
No, it's a little longer because the flowers have wilted.
Oh, the food
and,
is
like,
rotted and
the
stuff.
food is rotted. It's maybe a couple weeks later
Okay.
or something like that.
Regardless, they come. They find a letter. Ellie reads the letter to Joel, and it's kind of explaining why they did it, and that Frank has left Joel all his assets, all his supplies and his gear, and then the car as well. So they finally get their stuff and they head on their way, basically. That final shot was really nice, though.
When they're driving off in the truck?
They're driving off in the truck, and the music is playing, the same music that Bill and Frank played on the piano, and then in the window shot. That was also straight out of the game. It was a really great shot.
Yeah. Song called The Long, Long Time. The episode is called The Long, Long Time. And the runtime was a long, long time.
Yes.
I did like, it surprised me that it wasn't from the game, because when Ellie and Joel arrive, it feels like classic video game storytelling where they're learning all the things about what happened from the environment.
The notes.
You pick up and you read a letter, you look at the walls, you look at the crayon, or not the crayon, the candle all melted.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. It's touching, it's moving. It is not plot necessity, but
It serves purpose.
yeah,
though.
absolutely. Anybody saying this was an unnecessary episode, Like, what do you want from the
They're
show?
just Republican, Michael. It's okay.
Episode 4.
Yeah, episode 4 was like our first real Joel and Ellie adventure.
And this is actually, in this episode, that's where Ellie finds the gay porn magazine.
Yeah.
And she's like, why are all the pages stuck together? And Joel's like, don't worry about it. And she's like, oh, how does he walk around with that?
So that was like that whole sequence. That was line for line in the game as well. So a good nod to fans without feeling unnecessary.
My notes say Ellie has no need for hunky boys. I wrote as she threw it out
Yeah,
the
if you
window.
think they're mad about the fucking episode 3, just wait until they figure out who Ellie really is. You know what I mean? Like, Jesus Christ.
She threw the magazine out the window. That is a reference to the movie Psycho Gorman, which is about an alien that crashes to Earth, and then he finds like a Hustler magazine. Not Hustler, that's ladies. It's like a men's health magazine.
Okay.
And the kids are like trying to. They're like trying to entertain him, and they're like showing him the magazine. He's like, I have no need for hunky boys, or do I? Ellie has no need for hunky boys.
No. I thought this episode was probably the weakest episode so far, even though, I mean, there's only been 3 before this.
It felt like a arrange the pieces on the chessboard episode for the next episode.
Yes. It felt like this could have definitely been connected to the episode 5.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I did really like the kind of relationship building of Joel and Ellie, and how Joel is starting to thaw out a little bit when it comes to Ellie, and he's understanding of her in a way, or he tries to understand her. He feels for her. He feels sorry that she has to live in a world like this. He's probably getting flashbacks to his daughter like every fucking 5 seconds. But yeah,
This was my least like episode because Ellie's endless banter and chipper curiosity is just grinding my gears.
okay.
Which probably makes her a good teenager because I don't like hanging out with teenagers either. But like, just the way she goes around, she's like, "Oh, what's this? Let me look at this."
Yeah, it's a little much.
It's like, oh my god.
I don't remember.
Are you new here?
I don't remember
Like,
her being like that in the game.
No, I assumed it was. I assumed she's kind of like that in the game. But
Maybe they just wanted to, because also in the game, I feel like they made Ellie, her demeanor a little bit too adult. And I think that led to some creepy people being real hot for Ellie. And she's supposed to be a 14-year-old. So maybe let's make her more of a child in this so that we don't get creepy pedophiles coming after the actress.
So
You know what
she's
I'm saying?
annoying to fend off pedophiles. What a strange strategy.
Shit, if it works, man, do that shit. Which is funny because Bella Ramsey is actually 19.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time, teenagers are played by adults. It's mostly Joel and Ellie hanging out. Pedro Pascal's accent does he sound like Joel from the game? In my mind, he does.
I mean, he does, but he doesn't. I mean, Joel from the game has a little bit of a heavier Southern accent thing going.
I just always, whenever I see a guy that I know has a cool accent, I'm like, why don't you just let him do that accent? It kind of feels like when they make Benedict Cumberbatch be an American,
Yeah.
or like Martin Freeman. It's like, yo.
But in this, I mean, it wouldn't make any sense.
It makes a lot of sense. It's just every time he's good at it. That's mostly what I'm saying, is he's good at the accent. There's something a little put on sometimes about some of the line deliveries where it feels like I'm really leaning into the
Yeah, it feels a little too stale.
sounding like this, but
And you know, Bella Ramsey is British too.
she is, and she sounds, I would say, of the two, if I'm saying picking accents, Bella Ramsey kills it. I wouldn't have
yeah.
even guessed it until I heard her.
So yeah, Pedro Pascal, he's great.
Pedro Pascal, owner of the streaming market, Pedro Pascal, who had Narcos, which was the biggest show on Netflix for a while.
And then he was in Game of Thrones for a while.
And he's the star of The Mandalorian, the biggest show on Disney Plus.
He's killing it right now.
And now he's got the biggest show on HBO MAX. What a guy. Hope he's getting big fat checks.
And he seems like a decent dude. I don't know. I've seen a lot of interviews with him preparing for this, and he seems like a decent guy. So, I mean, I hope. I mean, all these Hollywood people are weird. So, Bella Ramsey, I'm really sold on her as Ellie. She has moments of greatness where I see like, okay, she's nailing it. And then other moments where I'm like, kind of the same thing with Pedro, where it's like, this is a little put on. I was thinking mainly the scene of the magazine scene. Maybe because I'm used to the dialogue in the game, it just sounded off to me. But it felt like they're rushing through their lines sometimes. I'm like, are y'all being told to go this fast, or can you just slow it down a little bit? But I think that she has makings of greatness, is what I'll say. I can see her getting a lot of work after this. I'm thinking more so episode 5. She has an awesome performance. I think she's great in that.
Yeah, episode 5 is really good.
But we're not completely done with episode 4 yet. I want to talk about the ending scene with her. So basically, they're going through this town, or they're going through the city. What city are they in?
They're in Kansas City.
Kansas City. So they're driving. They're having a little banter back and forth, and then they see a guy on the road because they have to take a turn off the highway and go into the city because the tunnel is blocked off. So they're driving, and there's a guy in the middle of the road, and he looks injured, and Ellie's like, are we going to help him? And Joel's just like, he's been through this shit. He's like, no, not doing that.
Yeah.
So they're driving, and they get in a little confrontation with the Raiders.
He doesn't sound like Christian Bale in Batman. He's like, I'm not doing it.
He's like, no.
No, where are the drugs going? Where are the drugs?
I'm hitting the gas.
So they're getting attacked by Raiders, and they crash into a little laundromat or something. They get into the lamest shootout I've ever seen in my life. I don't know about you, but
probably a pretty realistic one for a bunch of like civilians.
Right. So, and then Joel gets ambushed by a guy after he kills 2 guys in the front. He gets ambushed in the back.
Justin Roiland.
He gets ambushed in the back. No Bill and Frank. I'm playing. Right. I'm fucking around. Anyways.
It wasn't an ambush. It was consensual.
Joel has to kill this guy. Pretty convincing, the dude who was getting fucking murdered.
Yeah, his heel turn, not his heel turn, but like his flip from I'm going to fucking shoot Joel to like, or I'm going to choke out Joel to when Ellie shoots him in the ass, basically.
He's like, we can be friends. We can be friends. And
yeah.
I was like, Jesus Christ.
That guy gets my Gold Star Award for Best Actor in that episode.
Okay.
I just think he really crushes.
No, he was good.
He really crushes that scene, and that's like really a key scene. And his flip needs to be realistic for it to pin all the emotions we're feeling at the time together.
Yeah.
So, good job, that guy.
And so Joel and Ellie are basically, they're just trying to get get to a vantage point where they can see where they're going, and so then it cuts to Kathleen, which is the leader of some faction that took over Fedra, that they did a revolt and they killed all these Fedra people.
They took over Kansas City, and Kathleen is played by Leonardo DiCaprio's wife in Don't Look Up.
Oh, yeah. That's where she's from. Okay, yeah. I was wondering where she was from.
And boy, is she angry.
She's not good as this type of role. I don't know. That was just me. I didn't find her intimidating in the slightest.
I don't know if the role's not good or if the lines are not good, but she's just such a ridiculously over-the-top villain that it's like, oh my God.
Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just going to have to kill you now. Like, that kind of shit. I was like, no.
It's tired writing, this kind of villain. It's just like...
and she was a completely made-up character. So...
Okay, she's not a video game character.
No.
So that's all on the writers of the series, and yeah, I'd say her character just, we find out her motivations in episode 5, and even still, it doesn't really redeem or explain the way she's acting.
It feels kind of unnecessary, but I get it was to introduce Henry and Sam.
Yeah.
But so moving on through episode 4, Joel and Ellie have some moments together where they kind of come to a common ground with each other, and you start to see that relationship blossoming a bit. There's a really good scene and this is before the scene where they're about to go to sleep, but there's a good scene where Joel's kind of telling Ellie like he's sorry, that she had to do that, and she had to be a part of that, and she has to be a part of this world. And that's when I was like, Bella Ramsey, she's a decent actress. She had some tears going. So little subtle, like adorable little moments with her and stuff, and then it moves on to the scene where they're in the building and they're going to sleep, and she whips out the book again, or she does another joke.
Yeah. And then the cliffhanger ending is Joel and Ellie wake up, and two young men are holding one that's clearly a child, another like young man is holding them at gunpoint.
Yeah.
Cue episode 5.
So yeah, episode 5 starts off with their confrontation with Henry and Sam. Come to find out, Henry is the older brother of Sam, and his little brother is
Deaf.
Sam is deaf, and he also has leukemia. So he's got a lot of shit going on.
Kids will lem them, throw them out.
Yeah. Cool thing about this episode, or cool thing about one of the actors, the actor that plays Sam is actually deaf in real life. So it wasn't like they were just shoehorning this in for whatever reason. Sam was not deaf in the game, should be noted. But yeah, they go on a little adventure with each other. Come to find out, Kathleen is after Henry because Henry killed her brother, which was the leader of this faction. And yeah,
and Henry turned him in
to get
sold
meds
him out
for
to get
Sam.
meds for Sam, his brother. We get a little backstory of Henry and Sam and like how they came to this point. They're the most wanted men in the city. Joel and Ellie are second up. They're both being hunted by this faction. So Henry talks them into joining forces and guides them to some tunnels, which is their escape out of Kansas City. When they enter the tunnels, maybe my favorite moment in the episode is he gets them in the tunnels and Henry's like, totally empty. See, I told you. And Joel's like, we've only been here like 2 seconds. And he's like, your dad's kind of a pessimist. And they both at the same time, Joel and Ellie say, that's not my dad.
Yeah.
And you're not my dad.
I love the relationship between Sam and Ellie as they're going along, because I mean, Ellie is a kid, and you know she wants to do kid shit, and she has somebody to bond with.
And Sam's like little brother age. I don't know if we ever get his age, but Ellie's like 14. Sam's probably like 8, 9, 10.
Yeah,
somewhere in there. They both like the same comic book, and yeah, they start to bond. They make it out of the tunnels. They make it to. And then they get pinned down by a sniper who we find out is like a scout from the faction. Joel runs around, kills him, but then he's up in a house, and all of a sudden the rest of the faction rolls in. So Henry, Sam, and Ellie are alone on the street.
Something we didn't cover in episode 4 was the infected were all pushed underground by Fedra, and were never dealt with. And so the floor in one of the buildings in episode 4 is kind of caving in, alluding to that it's done by the cordyceps tendrils or whatever that's going through the city, and that all the infected are underground, and they're just waiting to come up, basically. Well,
Henry claims they're all killed, and the tunnel seems somewhat empty, so they got shoved somewhere kind of remote, or off the beaten path of these tunnels, because they did make it through unscathed for the most part. Yeah, there's a big brute. It's called a bloater. We see him show up. Also a man in a massive costume that I saw cost them $500,000 to make.
It looked all CGI.
No, the bloater is a man in a costume.
Wow.
In a really expensive...
it looked great.
Yeah, complicated costume. You know what the more... Like, Joel is the fighter, so the more vulnerable people are alone on the street when this all breaks out. Joel's trying to help sniping from above.
Hold up. Kitty, you gotta go. Oh, come on. Don't bite my head, please. Oh, shit.
Yeah, her claws are fucking... Oh, my God. Ah! So at this moment, Joel's up in a house across the way, and the more vulnerable people are on the ground. As the stampede happens, Henry and Sam end up under a car, and they're fighting their way out. And you're wondering, because the way it looks, somebody had to get bit right there, because they're in very close quarters. Ellie hides in a van, and I think maybe the scariest infected I've seen of the whole time is that little girl one.
The little clicker girl, yeah.
Because she's moving around like the fucking Grudge.
She was an actual, like, acrobat.
Yeah, the way she's, like, flopping, and it's very unsettling the way she moves.
Yeah.
Along with her little clicker face, and it's just, yeah. Probably the most heebie-jeebies of all of them. They do eventually end up escaping.
Because Kathleen is like, she confronts them, and of course she's a dumb character. She was terrible. She's like about to do her old little monologue, and then the little clicker girl jumps on her.
Yeah.
And they make their escape.
They reunite in some like empty house or somewhere.
The most bleak fucking scene in the show.
Yeah. So Ellie sees that Sam is bitten on his leg. She's like, I am medicine. And so she
My blood is medicine.
My blood is medicine. So she cuts it and tries to put it in his leg. And she thinks everything is going to be fine. Which is a pretty fucking stupid thing for her to think, honestly.
But I mean, it makes sense for her character because she wants a purpose with her life. You know what I mean? And she wants to help. And this will lead, so I don't want spoilers for you, but this will lead into another story element of her, a flashback of her and her friend. And this is the first person she ever had to put down.
Well, I just think she, it didn't make, I think she's a smarter character than that. That it seems like she shouldn't think that's a fix. Or at least that she should maybe tell Joel that this kid is bitten.
Yeah.
And like inform the adults of this situation. Doesn't seem like something she should keep hush hush. I don't know. That didn't quite add up to me, but it doesn't matter because very quickly everyone goes to sleep. She wakes up. Sam is on top of her and he's infected. I
like that they showed that he didn't immediately react to her because, I mean, he's deaf and he was facing the complete opposite direction. And so she has to go over there and actually touch him for him to react to her. And I just thought that was fucked. It was just so fucked, man.
They spill out into the main room where Joel and Henry are asleep. They wake up, and Henry grabs his revolver, and we're not really sure what he's going to do with it. And eventually he blasts his little brother in the face, puts him down. And then he turns to Joel and says, "What the fuck did I just do? What did I do?" And he's just unraveling. And Joel's like, "Put the gun down." He has the gun pointed at Joel. He's like, "Put it down. Give it to me. Give it to me. Give it to me." And then he brings the revolver up to his temple and ends himself.
Fuck.
Our second double suicide, well, not really double suicide, but basically.
I mean, basically.
In the last 3 episodes.
Yeah. Hands down, this was the best episode so far. This was the first time I actually felt something for characters. Not to say I didn't feel anything for Bill and Frank, but this one...
This was definitely the first zombie situation that made me really feel for characters. We did lose Joel's girlfriend Tess to zombies earlier, but that felt like almost obligatory. Yeah. Like... it just felt like this is gonna happen. Like if you knew anything about the game, if you just know that Joel and Ellie are on the cover, like you know this third lady's not sticking with them this whole time.
Anywhere.
And there's not a lot of shows that allow you to just blast a child in the face.
No, there's a couple. I mean, the first episode of episode 2, there's child death.
You know what I like is when kids when kids bite it. Remember Halloween Ends when the kid gets kicked off the banister?
That was the best scene in the fucking movie, man.
It's rough. I don't know. There's not a lot to say. It is well acted. It is a very it's like the moment. This is the dread of every zombie thing or any fiction with an infection. Where it's like, oh, you know how this is ending. When as soon as you see, well, you don't know exactly how it's ending, but you know Sam can't live.
Right.
Once you see that he's bitten.
Right.
So you kind of know where this is going. You are not as naive.
And I
as
guess
Ellie.
they don't do the whole Walking Dead thing where you just hack off limbs that get bit.
Is that what they do in The Walking Dead?
Yeah, remember Herschel?
Yeah. Oh, do you mean Yondu from
wait, hold on, what?
From Guardians of the Galaxy? That's
no, that's Merle.
Is Herschel the black guy?
Herschel is the farmer, the Maggie's dad. He's the old guy.
He has a missing limb?
Yeah, they have to. In the prison, he gets bit, and Rick fucking cuts his leg off.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that'd be cool. That'd probably be a better way to deal with it. I don't know. I don't know how cordyceps works.
I don't know. Best thing to do is shoot him in the fucking head, man.
Well, I'm pretty sure, doesn't the scientist lady in episode 2, the general's like, what do we do? And she was like, bombs?
Yeah, she was just like, there's nothing you can do. You can't make a vaccine. There's nothing. You're fucked. So, yeah.
So that's the story so far. You're fucked.
To close, I will say that this is a good adaptation. They love to say that there are no good video game adaptations, which is not true.
It has been mostly true up to this point.
It's mostly up until this point, but there are a few that are fine.
So a lot of like the animated ones. Like I think the people love the Arcane
Arcane is great. Yeah.
adaptation.
But I know nothing of League of Legends, so
Yeah.
it really wouldn't affect me either way. But
Yeah. There's a few exceptions, but for the most part, not good. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted.
But maybe that's just like, is it really that hard to adapt something? I just don't see when you have the source material right in front of your fucking face. How do you fuck up Assassin's Creed? I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Because Assassin's Creed isn't like basically a movie that's a video game too.
The Ezio trilogy, I mean, you could easily make that into a movie.
Yeah,
Come on.
you can. But the experience of playing an Assassin's Creed game is not the same as the
true.
experience of. It's the same as the story. Like an Assassin's Creed game, the experience is exploring your new land.
And The Last of Us is basically a movie on rails, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a movie video game on rails. So like this seems like an easy thing, like a Super Mario Brothers movie. Now they're doing the animated one, and that makes a little more sense.
That shit looks crispy as fuck.
It does look good. I don't know if I care to see it, but it does look like quality animation and like a cool rendering of that world.
Yeah.
And it's like it can be done, but you just have to have imagination and people that understand it. And I think that's the true, like the kernel of the issue here is that we're kind of growing into the age where like adults that are in their 30s and 40 somethings that can be like respected professionals in the entertainment craft have played video games and are familiar with
Right.
them, but previous to this, like the old heads just will not understand.
Right. Or
And you
just get your Neil Druckmanns to come in and help out. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Yeah.
And I think that's what's held a lot of stuff back is it was made by people that didn't understand the product that they were adapting.
Right.
Or either that or they didn't care. And they were just like, I'm Paul Thomas Anderson. I'm just making a bunch of movies to cast my wife, Mila Jovovich.
Yeah, the Resident Evil franchise is a great example on how to royally fuck a franchise.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm interested to keep watching more. I know where the story is going to go. They already got greenlit for a season 2, and so they're going to cover The Last of Us Part 2.
I don't even think this season will end. Honestly, I don't think this season will end at the end point of Last of Us season episode 1, or the original Last of Us. I don't think that that would be way too presumptive of this. I think they knew this would be a big deal, and you gotta stretch it. That's the thing that I kind of don't like about TV shows is when it's a success, then they're like, all right, now stretch the show.
But I mean, it's pretty well known that the whole game is covered in one season.
Is this true?
There's scenes from the ending in the trailer.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll find out.
But I also watched an interview with Neil Druckmann, and he said that season 2 will cover part of The Last of Us Part 2, and then there'll be room for a season 3 because the story is so long.
Well, that's interesting.
So, and talk about controversial, people are going to be either of two ways for season 2.
Yeah. Well, season 2 is going to be...
But I kind of like how they're setting up Ellie's character, because in part 2 she's kind of a fucking psychopath.
Yeah.
And so you kind of see little hints of that. The scene where she's in the basement and she's kind of fucking with that infected. She's kind of a violent person.
Yeah.
She's got some violent tendencies, and so that's kind of cool that they're got these little tidbits where they're kind of throwing in where it's like it will pay off eventually, kind of thing. So yeah, it's done with care. I appreciate quality. Is what I'll say. May not be the best fucking thing ever, like people are saying, but it's quality.
It is a good show, and like I said at the beginning, just not particularly in my wheelhouse. I think I'm just learning that I don't like shows, and that's a pity because there's lots of good shows, and it's not that I will never watch a show, But the level of interested I need to be to watch a movie and the level of interested I need to be to watch a show is like way more.
A show is an investment.
Because I know I'm signing up for hours and hours and hours.
Right.
And I can be like, I don't know, that sounds interesting. Well, I have an hour and 45 minutes. I can watch this movie.
Right.
And I know it'll be done. And that's it. I can be like, I liked it, I didn't like it, and dust my hands off.
Right.
There's like shows, like I ended up watching, like 6 fucking hours of that Lord of the Rings show before I was like, actually,
This is dog shit.
this is dog shit, and I'm not even going to finish this season because there's 4 more episodes. You know, and I hate that tension where I have to be, especially when I'm not like all the way sold,
Right.
where I need to be like, do I want to keep watching this? Am I going to keep
Yeah.
watching this? Because it's like every day it's a decision to go back.
I think for me, it's like I'm interested to see how they're going to translate the game into the show. I find that interesting. Yeah, we'll see what happens next. I mean, I know what happens next. You know what happens next. We'll just keep watching. We'll probably do a part 2 of this eventually.
Yeah,
I actually have one last question for you. Joel Miller versus Rick Grimes. Who's beating whose ass?
Ooh, that's tough. Like in a fist fight, or like a mano a mano, no holds,
Or maybe even like a survivor fight. Who's the better survivor? Or who's the better dad? I feel like Rick Grimes is taking this motherfucker. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I would say just from the fact that his son is alive.
Spoiler: Carl dies,
Well, yeah, eventually, but she at least makes it into the apocalypse, you know?
and then Rick dies. But Rick came back, guys, and there's gonna be more content.
Endless shit.
So let's hope The Last of Us doesn't go down the Walking Dead rabbit hole. You
The
know?
forever show with forever spinoffs.
Oh, it will. If it makes enough money, it will.
Yeah. We'll squeeze that tea dry. So we'll recap the end of the season probably next month when it finishes. Yeah, I think we'll just throw back into the. We're just gonna throw back to the end of our Friday review because I think this is gonna be right in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, this is gonna be a long episode.
So listen to our half brain dead end of the episode of Friday.
These two correlate so well. You know
yeah.
what I mean?
You know,
Nothing like a little child murder.
on one hand, you have child murder and apocalypse. On the other hand, it's Friday and you don't got shit to do.
Might as well get high.
Choose your fighter.
And now for something completely different.
Shall we move on from the performance test?
To It's an Art Bro.
What's this?
It's an art project.
Okay, I like it. Picasso. Yeah, that way.
It's an Art Bro is where we talk about the specifics of the filmmaking process, sets, effects, lighting, framing, soundtrack. Maybe the biggest thing about this movie is like everybody's got a sound for their arrival. Maybe not everyone, but I remember his girlfriend was always banging music when she pulls up.
Yeah.
We have Debo with his little on his bike. Like everybody announces their arrival. Smokey's always blasting music when they're driving
Big
around.
Worm is in an ice cream truck blaring
Yeah.
ice cream music. Yeah.
Everybody announces their arrival because it's notably a movie mostly about 2 dudes sitting on their porch.
Yeah.
And then people just show up. In fact, for like in the back like third of the movie, there's a bit much of Ice Cube just going in and out that damn door.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's supposed to eventually be a bit, but he just keeps coming in and out and in and out. Man, let me see what's going on in there. Oh, this person came up. The girl came back to get her purse. Let me go out. Now he comes back out and his real girlfriend's
Shit, put
there.
that away. My daddy's coming home. Yeah. I don't know, but it had like this movie really like hit that stoner nerve for me because I just remember being young and having days like that.
Yeah.
And most of those days I had were with you. So, I mean,
It's true.
I found that kind of relatable.
Maybe it must be the weed because the one thing I noticed is all they need is $200 and none of them come up with a single fucking idea that is worth a damn They have like a little montage where they act like they're getting ideas, but then they still don't have any ideas.
Yeah.
So at the end, Ice Cube's just like laying in bed asking various people in his family to
For
loan him
money.
loan him $200, or he's asking his girlfriend to give him $200, and she's gonna, and then a girl talks to him, and she's a jealous bitch, so she gets mad and drives away.
Who the fuck is that bitch?
But all they need is $200. Like, they have a watch they could pawn for $200. Smokey has a chain they could probably pawn for $200.
Yeah.
Like, in any other movie that's not a stoner comedy, these people would have came up with any sort of formulated plan to receive $200,
Right.
but they're just blown at the whim of whoever shows up. So, like, Debo shows up and tries to shake him down and then talks him into robbing the neighbors. But then they still don't get the money from that. But again, that was not their plan. The only reason the money exists is because Debo shows up and makes some action happen.
Right.
Like classic stoners. They have no concept of like any way to get off their ass to fix their own
Right.
problem.
And that's realistic because if you're high and you owed somebody money, you're not getting them the money. It's not happening. You're not going to put that much
Especially-
effort into it.
Especially if you just got fired on your day off.
Yeah, you're gonna
and
be-
it's Friday.
You're going to be chilling.
And you don't got shit to do tomorrow.
You
So I'm
gonna-
going to smoke you up right now.
You're going to make some Kool-Aid and you're going to be chilling. What's the scene where he's
Y'all
making
ain't never got two shit that match. You got peanut butter and no jelly. You got Kool-Aid and no sugar.
Damn!
You got ham but no burger.
God damn. It's also, we should note that this whole film takes place in one neighborhood. They never go outside the neighborhood. They're not on a globe-trotting adventure.
In one day.
Yeah.
Another kindred spirit with last week's episode on Do the Right Thing.
Yeah.
These are weird mirrors of each other. But if one decided to be a stoner comedy and then one decided to be like an elevated art piece about
Social commentary.
About
yeah.
the problems of racism in our community. But this one's like, fuck it, punch Debo. That's how we fix our problems here.
But you got to be a man. You got to be a man about it. You got to handle your business. Yeah, it's not very interestingly shot. It's pretty basic. I don't think it looks terrible. It also has a very colorful palette as well.
Yes, everybody's got very colorful rooms. Yeah, the set that is his house is very well dressed and homely, and it does feel really like truly like somebody's house on a block
Right.
in Compton. Those all feel like very realistic notes. I like Stanley, the nerdy neighbor that would just prefer if you stayed off his damn lawn.
He's always wearing a robe or something. Yeah.
And he has like a bright yellow house or something. Like everybody's houses are very just, it's got that 90s charm that
Yeah.
it's very of a moment.
This should be also said that this was co-written by Ice Cube as well, which I actually learned from the Straight Outta Compton movie. Because there's a scene where he's like writing the script for Friday, and he's like, "Bye, Felicia." Yeah, that's gonna be funny as hell. Like, you know. Yeah. So Ice Cube, I guess he's a decent comedy writer. He had some help from DJ Pooh. I don't know who DJ Pooh is, but he's produced albums for many rappers such as Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, and Tupac.
You know, F. Gary Gray, you know what he goes on to direct? Straight Outta
Compton, and Law Abiding Citizen, and The Fate of the Furious.
And the Men in Black reboot that utterly flopped, starring, what's her name from Thor? And Thor, right?
From Love and Thunder?
It's Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson, who are both in the
Oh.
Thor movies in the Men in Black reboot. That
Yeah.
sucked.
Yeah.
But those other movies are all pretty good. Straight Outta Compton's a fun movie. O'Shea Jackson. Wait, is that O'Shea Jackson Jr.?
O'Shea Jackson Jr. Because
O'Shea Jackson is Ice Cube's name?
Ice Cube, yeah. He was a spot-on interpretation of Ice Cube.
Spitting image. Like,
Yeah.
the apple didn't fall far from the tree with those motherfuckers.
But then he kind of went the same route as his father in appearing in very shitty action films after that.
Remember him from Star Wars Kenobi? The touch tone.
Yeah.
The touch tone of the fucking our Joker origin story.
He was also in Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Was he?
Yes. He was a military. Or he was
Oh, yeah. That's another movie I don't like. That also has, what's his name, from Bullet Train.
No, that's the first one that has him in it.
No. Oh,
The
that's
second one
Godzilla-
has Millie Bobby Brown and the other guy.
I'm thinking of Godzilla versus King Kong.
No, he's not in Godzilla versus King Kong either. He's in the first one with Bryan Cranston. Bryan Cranston is his father.
We're talking about two different people.
No, you're talking about the guy who plays Kick-Ass.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the black
Oh,
guy.
the black guy. Yeah. Okay, you're right. That's interesting.
We're just creating our little Charlie Day web from just talking about movies. We're just making references. The thing about Friday, while it's a movie I enjoyed a lot and I get that you very love, it's not that complicated.
No.
There's not a lot going on here.
No.
Let's pull apart this stoner comedy. I don't think so. It's just people hanging out. Funny lines. Debo's hilarious. Everybody has a good time until the very end where it's like, we're going to wrap up this story.
Yeah, we got to find, there has to be some type of stake involved, or some conflict between the characters, yeah.
Which, again, is kind of an intense stake, although it turns out that it was never maybe that serious. Although people do show up and try to shoot them. That's kind of
and then it's like, that's over.
The confusing part about the end is they don't get the money. Big Worm sends people to shoot them. They manage to escape and survive. Then it turns into a fight with Debo.
But then the fight pays off because they get the money out of Debo's pocket at the end, and they're able to pay Big Worm.
Right, but the assassination attempt has already occurred.
Yeah, but you have to have a drive-by in these movies,
It's a little intense of a setup for a premise that they end up just kind of ignoring.
Yeah. But the ending also serves to set up the sequel, which is the sequel of Debo escapes prison and goes after Craig. So it's fine, I guess. I don't think this is a good movie by any means. I enjoy it because it has that nostalgic factor for me. And I also think it's pretty funny. I don't find it as obnoxious as most comedies of this genre are. I also love the history of it and just like what it's done for a lot of these actors, these black actors who would have normally probably under different circumstances gone under the radar, but it kind of boosted them to fame. Like I think Chris Tucker after this blew the fuck up. And then he started getting offers for like Rush Hour and all these different types of comedies.
It's certainly a cultural touchstone. Whether or not this gets inducted at the end of our episode where we do the perfect movie, it is, like you said, you ain't black until what are you, Joe Biden? You ain't watched Friday, then you ain't black.
And you're not black.
But the sentiment behind that is it is a cultural touchstone. It is a big part of black American culture in the modern age. And it is certainly a very famous and well-loved film from that era.
Yeah. It didn't get good reviews, but it gained a cult following afterwards.
For sure.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to Let the Hate Flow Through You?
Good. Use your aggressive feelings, boy. Let the hate flow through you.
Yeah, I think some of the comedy is outdated.
Particularly Chris Tucker inviting a big girl over, and then, which it's funny because he is told by her, "I'm pretty big," or she says like I'm bigger, or she says like
she's
I'm
like big boned or something. Yeah.
She says something like that on the phone, but he's just too horny to care.
Or no, she was like, "I look like Janet Jackson."
No,
he was like, "Janet Jackson."
Yeah. But at some point she says like I'm thicker, I'm bigger or something. She hints to it, so it's not exactly a surprise when she shows up.
Oh, no, she said like I have a fat ass or something. And then Chris Tucker was like, yeah.
But the whole joke is that she's big and bald-headed, and that's a little like...
And then she gets out the car and like farts for no reason.
That's when I was like, oh, this is fucked up.
I kind of found it funny though when she was like to Smokey. She's like, "So what we doing tonight?" He was like, "Not a damn thing." I get it was the time, and jokes were different, and they also make fun of little people in this.
Yes,
And
the little people humor, which is just like, look at this little person running around.
yeah, and they also make fun of crackheads, and I don't think crackheads are funny either.
Yeah. It's a little leering about all the women characters.
Yeah. I'm surprised they didn't have a gay character in there, because I feel like that's another trope that they would have did.
Oh, like, he's not right. Look at him. Ha ha ha.
Yeah. Again, it's a different time. We live in a more progressive era, and this shit would not fly today. So,
no.
Yeah.
It would have been a big white girl that came out.
Or they would have been like, she's a Karen. People would have found that hilarious because it's a relevant topic.
Have you driven past the graffiti that says, go call Karen, that's off the freeway?
No,
I 35. You
on
probably
35.
did.
I never take 35W, so.
I don't know. I just don't know who would have graffitied that. That seems like a really square graffiti. Like, what are you doing?
They're
Go
trying
call
to,
Karen?
I don't know.
It seems like something the city commissioned.
Yeah, they're like, we gotta,
What'll endear us with the youth?
Yeah, write Karen on the wall.
Write Karen on the wall. Nobody likes a Karen. Didn't age so well.
No.
In certain...
It's a very long movie, too.
It's not.
It's not? I felt like it was really long, and I felt like it could have been cut down a bit.
It's an hour and 30 minutes. It just feels kind of long because there's not a lot happening.
Okay.
Which is, a trope of the genre. Stoner movies, not a lot should happen.
It's true. Because that's realistic. Yeah, not a lot I hate about this movie. I love it personally. It's one of those so bad it's good kind of things for me.
So we come to the question. Is this a perfect movie?
You lost a baby brother. Perfect in every way. I had a baby brother. I had a little baby brother. And he was perfect. Perfect in every way.
No, I don't think this is a perfect movie. I think it has that quality to it, like you were saying before, that 90s quality has that nostalgic feel, and anybody who grew up watching this, it's going to be one of their favorite movies. I mean, it's from that aspect, it's timeless, I would say, as a comedy, and just from all the quotes and the memeable shit that's going on, I think it will last for a long time.
That doesn't mean that this movie's like completely lacking in merit, or that there are not good things in it, or that it's not funny. It is just not quite achieved the bar of a perfect movie. It is a funny movie. It is a cult movie. It is a well-liked and well-loved movie for good reason.
I think it's a hallmark in black cinema. I think it's something that historically should be recognized as a groundbreaking comedy as far as like the genre, even though this genre is not particularly good. I don't think there's really any stoner comedies or comedies like this that are good. Like, let's just be real. Like Harold and Kumar, it's a fun time. Movie shit. Just how it is, but you can enjoy it for what it is and turn your brain off and watch it and have a good time. And I think this falls under that same category.
I agree. Not a perfect movie. Pretty good. Fun stoner comedy. I would recommend if you haven't watched it.
Yeah. And you could find this anywhere. I think
it's on HBO Max right now.
Also, we should mention Do the Right Thing is on Amazon Prime. So
Yeah.
if you ever want to watch Do the Right Thing, check that out on Amazon Prime. The next movie we are going to be doing is a little movie called Fences with Denzel Washington and Viola Davis, which is a fantastic film, and I'm looking forward to rewatching that and reviewing it. I'm looking forward to you actually getting a chance to watch it because
directed by Denzel as well.
Yeah.
Part of the theme here is these are all black directors as well as movies.
Yes.
With largely black casts. Until next time, we're going to have to bust out some Denzel impressions, I'm sure.
I can't. I don't think I can do Denzel.
Denzel's so tough because it's so, you know.
You have to kind of like show your teeth. You know what I mean? He's got like
He does that thing with his mouth where he's like,
yeah, like
I can't even do it. It would turn into an Italian person for me.
yeah.
Because it's not quite that, but it's the same
But
energy.
it rides that line. Yeah.
It's got the same energy. Denzel Washington, Secret Italian. You know, it's a great Denzel Washington movie. The movie Flight, which is it's actually not a great movie.
Is that where he's trying to land the plane?
It's the one where he crashes the plane, and then at the end he learns how to do drugs, like matches uppers and downers just right, so he can finish something. Because the whole problem is he's like a drunk and a addict to coke. But then they try to pin the crash on him, but actually he was pretty good at his job, and even though he was drunk.
Is that based on a true story?
Nope.
Okay.
It's also not that great. I just think it's funny because literally at the end, I forget what it is. There's some like test or something he has to do in court to prove his ability, and he like ends up being up all night. So then he decides he needs to be like just the right amount of high on coke and just the right amount of drunk or whatever to like even out and calm his nerves and make it through the test.
What the fuck?
And it's like, what is this? Is not the theme we should be taking from this movie. I don't think.
I'll save it for next week's episode. But one thing about Denzel, it can be a shit movie, but he's fantastic in it. Usually, I don't think I've ever seen a bad performance from Denzel Washington.
Denzel's got that movie star persona. He's like Tom Cruise or like Brad Pitt
Or like Leo.
Or like Leo. It's like the few people that it's like they can do characters, but ultimately you're there watching Denzel Washington.
Right.
Or you're there watching
I think of
Tom
like
Cruise.
Remember the Titans, which is the most cliche fucking sports movie ever, but his performance in Remember the Titans is like, it's like
yeah, him and the
he's
white
shit.
coach, both those guys are like great actors, and it's just.
You ever seen John Q, where his son needs a heart transplant, and so he holds like a hospital waiting room hostage and demands that a new heart for his son? It's a very like one of those touchy-feely movies, but it's great performance by Denzel as well.
Well, Friday's not a perfect movie. We will be doing Fences next week.
Yes.
Starring Denzel.
And then our last film of the month, maybe
Judas
we'll
and
do
the
some
Black Messiah.
Yep, Judas and the Black Messiah. Maybe we'll do another one if we have time. Yeah, until then, catch you later.
Peace.